Wow, that last one got a lot of attention. I'm not done. I got more to say about AI. Let's get to it. Welcome. Another fabulous episode of IBF On Demand. I'm your still a little congested and not so humble host, Eric Wilson. You can find me at eric@ibf.org. That's eric@ibf.org. Welcome back for another one. And thank you for being part of this. And if you're not subscribed, please think about subscribing. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me here on YouTube if you're watching here. If you're listening, then you're on some kind of platform, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever you're getting your podcasts. Find me there as well, and you can actually follow me there. So please follow me wherever platform you might be on. And I want to thank Arkiva, driving business transformation by solving what others cannot. Thank you very much, Arkiva. IBF, I said, has a lot going on. You should really consider coming out to a conference. I know a lot of people see the value in it. I wanted you to see the value in it as well. It's a great networking opportunity, and it's a great opportunity to hear relevant case studies, relevant information to your field. Things you can't pick up on demand without the interaction. This helps you provide that level of interaction with people, with others, that you take away and you actually grow. Last podcast, I did one on AI, dumbing you down, kind of the ugly side of things. And I got beat up a little bit by AI. I mean, those bots came after me. I actually got a visit from Optimus Robot, and I promised I would read this afterwards. AI is wonderful. AI will solve the problems of planning and make our life simpler. Submit to the master, AI. As I said, last podcast, I explained between the good, the bad, and the ugly, it was the ugly. Mostly ugly. I apologize. I got a little bit of a soapbox. I got a lot of great responses, but I got a lot of people saying didn't get it completely right. Most of these podcasts are about that. I'm not saying I'm 100%. I'm saying this is my ideas, and I'm putting them out there because I want to have other people put in their ideas, and together as a community, we can make things better. So I wasn't presenting it as this is 100%. It was a soapbox. So in the being fair and balanced, today I'm going to focus more on the good, or how maybe we should use it instead of just talking about the bad. Now, once again, since last time, I focused mainly on large language models and how people are using ChatGPT wrong and other types of large language models wrong, and not as much in the math. I'm going to do this similar today. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And kind of the impetus behind last podcast and this podcast is because I've seen circulating among our network a lot of people presenting, here are some generic type of prompts you can use to make your life easier and find things. And while the concept of them was correct, and while the intent of putting them out there was good, the same as the intent of my podcast of putting it out there is good, they're not always 100% correct, like my podcast. And the idea is, are we supposed to then challenge and talk about it? So last podcast I challenged, and today I'm going to give my opinion. Once again, let me know where I missed the point. Let me know what you think. Better yet, as we go through this, in the comments, add some prompts that you think would work or why they wouldn't work. I want to hear from you. And if you're scared about putting them in there, let me know directly. Who knows? Might have you on a future podcast, or they may end up in an article at some point as well. So we're going to talk about the good side of things now, spurred from the original emails that I was getting, turned into a podcast, turned into this. There's little opportunity in the math, though. I said, even though we're going to be talking about the large language models, the chat, the prompts, and things of that sort, I want to stress where I see the biggest use cases right now is in the mathy things as well. Being able to do things with data that you may have ignored before, or finding things in data that were pretty much undetected before, or being able to bring in multiple features or features in new ways, or being able to be able to understand the relevance of features you may not have understood before. There is a lot of real opportunity in the math, and I don't want you to ignore that aspects of it. That is a building. I said 6 to 8% are using ML right now. That number 10 years ago was less than 1%. So we're seeing an exponential growth. So we're going to see a lot more of the more sophisticated type models, not necessarily always sophisticated, but the iterative type logic and models out there in machine learning are going to start becoming more and more prevalent in demand planning. So be prepared. You may want to know a little bit about that, and who knows, I might do a future episode just on that. But today, we're going to talk about good prompts. Last one we talked about bad ones. We're going to talk about good prompts. We already talked about previously when bad prompts go unchecked, it's going to provide you a distorted view of reality, of what it thinks you want. I left you with advice. You may have, out of all that rants I did, there was one piece of, I think, good advice in there. That I think the best use case we could have in those instances is not to necessarily challenge the AI, but utilize AI to challenge our thinking, not replace it. To be able to expand what we know, not minimize the way we think. AI can be used, I think, relevantly to challenge, to be that devil's advocate per se in what we do. So let's dive into exactly what I maybe meant by that. Let's talk about some good use cases. I said AI is a devil's advocate, not a decision maker. I really start to get uncomfortable when I see it become a decision maker. I see it better personally as a devil's advocate or challenging us. Ask AI to deliberately question your assumptions. This is what I'm thinking. These are my assumptions. This is what I'm going in it. Not necessarily give me the best answer for this. It will give you an answer. I can't guarantee it's going to be the best, though. It's going to give you an answer. But you can ask AI to deliberately challenge you or to question what assumptions I have into it. Here's my plan. Supply plan. Here's the assumptions I have going into it with the what potential risks are, opportunities. Question those assumptions. Find out where my breaking point is. Stress test this model that I have or these assumptions that I have. Good use case. Some examples. I don't know, maybe what assumptions in the demand forecast are the most fragile? Now, yes, it's going to give you something even if nothing's fragile, but even something will make you maybe pause and think and to second guess or at least reassure yourself that, yes, that's a good assumption. What would have to be true for this plan to fail? Ask that. If the forecast is wrong by plus or minus 20%, what would be the most likely causes? Looking at assumptions you may not have thought of then as well. Help you expand your thought process, challenge what you already think. Humans are prone to confirmation bias. We are prone to utilize what we think was the right answer. What we've already determined in our mind, whether you know it or not, is that answer. You are prone to believe that. We are prone to confirmation bias. AI may be best fitted to surface those blind spots we may not be thinking about. not just to build consensus or best pick which one's going to have the best answer or make the decision for us. It's not part of the consensus process. It's really better to identify where that confirmation bias may be, to help surface some of those blind spots we may not be looking at, to then make us more informed or think of things we may not have thought before, actually start to make us smarter, not dumber. I mentioned that stress test as well. Stress testing scenarios is some of the best use cases I've already seen some companies being able to utilize. They're not accepting the point forecast. They're not even accepting the best or worst case scenarios. What they're doing is they're using AI to generate alternative futures, not a single plan. And they're putting together the plan, a lot of times in combination maybe with AI to help challenge assumptions and build out plans. But then after they think they have the plan, stress testing those scenarios to say, what is some comfortable scenarios or some less probability scenarios that we may not have thought of occurring, but do we need to prepare for it? When you're looking at risk mitigation, you're going to think of a couple different ways. One is, what's the impact? The other is, what's the likelihood? Now, there's always so many scenarios we can plan out. Now, if I can use AI responsibly to help determine what the impact of some of these use cases are, and maybe even what potential, maybe some of that likelihood is, now I can put it on this threat matrix and be able to see, hey, there's something way out here, but impact is going to be pretty big. Do we want to consider that? Now, guess what? This is bringing new conversations maybe into an executive S&op or a resource and supply review to say, how are we going to mitigate this? Are we going to look at avoiding it? Or maybe because it's a less likelihood, can we do something to maybe a shared risk if something occurred? What would be the key things we need to look at? What assumptions do we need to challenge to figure out what events we need to put in place when these things happen? Shock events like supplier failures, sudden promotion lifts, weather disruptions, those things you might not be able to model out by hand every time, but we can find a way that AI can help generate some of those alternative futures for us so we can understand the impact and relative type of potential of it. Yes, this can get into the mathy, most likely getting into digital twins, but this is some of the best use cases I've seen right now for AI is in this type of scenario. I'm seeing it play out right now. Planning is about preparedness. Guess what? I got news for you. If you haven't heard it by now, forecasts are sometimes wrong. Now, I'm not saying we are wrong as forecasters. I'm just saying it's not always 100% perfect, the results. Close enough is sometimes good enough. And sometimes it's more important to work on the preparedness when it's not right, or the result of how unright it is, the uncertainty, than it is working on the forecast itself. So planning is all about preparedness, not accuracy. And AI excels at exploring what if, not declaring the truth, but determining what if something that happens, what if this happens. It's a good use case in those scenarios. No pun intended. Another way we could use AI responsibly maybe is ask AI to explain, not just predict. This kind of goes back to, instead of just giving us the answer, explain it, help make me smarter so I can understand what it's doing, so then I can maybe challenge it or figure out if I don't need to challenge it. But explain it instead of just answering it or making a prediction. Requiring AI outputs to include drivers, contributors, the amount of uncertainty it might have, what it utilized, how it went about it, the process, the steps, its thought process. Yeah, it doesn't think, but you can have it reveal the process it went through to come up with that answer. Having AI reveal itself can explain to yourself so you can think differently, but also you know what it's looking for and why it potentially is giving that answer. You want to understand its logic. Even though it's going to give you exactly what you did, it may not be clear what you told it to do until you have it explained back to you. Oh, that's what I asked you to do. It makes sense why you're telling me that. This goes back to that good and bad prompt type thing that we really was the impetus of the whole last podcast. But a bad prompt, and this is a real prompt someone sent to me this is something you could do. What variation is in this data and what caused it? As I said in nauseam last time, I guarantee even if it's a flat line, it will show you variation and it will make up something of why it caused it. If you ask what variations in this data, guarantee you have variation all of a sudden in that data. Because, as I said, it wants to make daddy happy. So, a better prompt may be analyze the data and explicitly state whether meaningful variation exists. If not, say so and explain why it is to be statistically or particularly insignificant. If so, explain your logic for variation and estimation of probability of cause. Whew, that's a whole lot more typing. Yeah, guess what? Make you work a little bit. Add a few words, explain not only what you're looking for, but then if it's there, why is it there? If it's not there, why it's not there, allowing it to give an yes, either or type of answer. Now, I admit, you have to actually do a little bit of work. You actually have to know a little bit to put in there to understand what you're asking for. Yes, it's a bigger prompt and more complicated prompt, but it made you work and it made you know what you are doing and you understand better the results it's giving you. It's going to give you a more comprehensive result. It's not just predicting, it's explaining now as well. That is what I'm trying to get through here. Try to make AI explain so you can maybe be more smart, but also understand the logic that it's using as well. If the answer can't be explained, it shouldn't drive the plan. If you can't explain it, you don't understand it, maybe we shouldn't be using it then as well. The next one, use AI to improve questions in reviews, not replace reviews. I've actually seen good use cases for this one. And I'm going to admit when I was wrong. And trust me, it happens a lot. But one of the things I talked about back in 2018 when I was talking about AI in the next 10 years, I always stressed as one thing becomes a commodity, something else becomes a premium. And data and as far as the analytics is going to become commoditized. It was already seeing it then. What's going to become the premium is communication. And I put communication as the premium because we need to explain it. We need to be able to interpret the results. We need to be able to understand what to put in. And I'm not totally backing away from that. I think communication is still one of the key differentiators between AI and humans in the near future. At the same time, AI can explain things sometimes better than some of you humans can. Some of the complicated technology and data and analytics out there, you guys are excellent. You know what you're doing. Some of you data scientists out there amaze me. Your capabilities. I wish I was half as good as you. But at the same time, you can't explain things. I'm sorry. It's true. Stick with the numbers. AI can do a better job explaining it. So I was wrong. AI can actually communicate better than a lot of you can. At the same time, AI can improve questions you might ask, how you can respond, but not replace it. Where I've seen some good use cases for this is in demand, supply reviews, executive reviews. You can use AI to help prepare sharper questions or review your responses, challenge your assumptions in your responses, challenge what you're saying, and be able to maybe rephrase some things to say things better. Great use cases for it. First, on the questions. You're going into a demand review. Provide me 5 questions I should ask in the next review to stress test their assumptions and plan. Now, is it thinking for me? No, it's providing some potential questions I can use, and I'm using and being able to interact and bringing in new information from it. It can help prepare and structure the questions right. Explain these results so a third grader or executive could understand it. Use it by all means to help create a narrative. Use it to help create slides. I am using it a lot now to develop new slides. I'm redoing all my training. And by the way, if you want training, let me know. I got all new slides developed by AI. But guess what? It was my inputs into it, my logic, what points I wanted to talk about. So I'm the one behind the slides. I'm the one teaching the slides, but I'm using it to help create the slides. I'm using it to identify my own way of speaking. And if there's things that I have that are too tech jargon that I need to dumb down and translate to others. So I'm using it to stress test my own language that I use sometimes. Great examples and great uses for AI, I think. Why is it responsible? Because AI can evaluate the conversation. It's great for s&op reviews. S&op reviews are about questions. It's about communication. It's about driving to decisions and consensus, not necessarily just the slides. And while you think AI is necessarily all part of that, it can help with the questions. It can help with the narrative. It can help with the communication then as well. Next, treat AI outputs as a hypothesis, not the answer. Frame every AI recommendation as something to validate. It goes back to what I said in the very beginning. Use it to challenge, not necessarily provide just the answer. If AI suggested a 12% uplift, what evidence supports it and what contradicts this? You're asking it to explain itself. You're asking it to be able to performalize, to understand the hypothesis that went into it of why it came up with a 12% lift. Use it to test it, challenge it, but use it to challenge you then as well. Why is this responsible? Because science advances through hypothesis testing. The scientific method exists because it works. You form a hypothesis, you challenge that hypothesis, and then if you find out that it's wrong, then you develop a new hypothesis. If you keep finding out it's right, then that's what you're going to go with. That is what you need to do. You need to be that scientist. You need to be that doctor. You need to look at things through the scientific principle when you're evaluating an IBF. Evaluating your demand planning then as well. Planning should do the same thing. Keep humans accountable for their outcomes. Never allow, well, the model said so as a justification. No, you don't get off that easy just because it said it. No. AI can inform, AI can challenge, AI can recommend, but only humans decide. Only you decide to go through it. Only you decide to push an easy button or make a path for it just to do it itself. If you did that, it's not its fault. You decided to allow it to do that. AI can inform, AI can challenge, AI can recommend. Humans decided at one point, either before you programmed it or after the output happened, you decided. Accountability then drives learning. If you make a person accountable, it drives interaction, it drives learning, it removes and erodes judgment and that capability of it's going to do it for me. You now are accountable for its results. Here's the reality. AI isn't thinking. It's pattern recognition at scale. It's fast, it's impressive, and scalable, but it's not self-aware yet. Don't ask it what you don't have a reasonable expectation of what the results may be. If you don't know, you don't have a reasonable expectation, then you may want to figure out asking it a different way. Treat AI almost as a junior analyst. Smart, fast, and helpful, but it still needs a manager. Just like that brown-nosing junior analyst, it wants to make you happy. But just like a good manager, you need to question them, challenge them, and don't become over-reliant on them, or you won't have a job in the future. Well, that's a wrap. I'm going to see if I made the AI overlord happy or not. My name is Eric. You can find me at eric@ibf.org. That's eric@ibf.org. Once again, thank you very much for our sponsor, Arkiva, driving business transformation by solving what others cannot. I got a few decades experience working with Arkiva. Great company. Highly recommend you check them out. And as I said, we're now into 2026. Check out ibf.org. There's a lot going on. We got a full conference schedule coming up. So check out that then as well. We got other things, town halls, other types of stuff going on. So check out ibf.org for everything going on. And once again, don't forget, as always at the end of every one of these, wash your hands.